how do you get people to basically sell themselves into your offer? Meaning you haven't even pitched yet. You haven't even told them the details of exactly what it is what you do. And they still are like, let's go, I'm ready to buy. In this episode, I'm going to cover exactly what you need to do to make sure that you're building more demand for what you do so that sales become much, much easier. Because a lot of the coaches that I talk to are experiencing similar things. They're spending their time on sales calls basically trying to convince people into buying, or they're using fast action discounts or trying to get bonuses in or doing different things to maybe try to create some sort of urgency for them to sell. But you're implementing all of these things and not necessarily getting better at your conversion, meaning, not everybody that you talk to or the great majority of people that you talk to are actually not buying. And so obviously this leads you to feel a little bit more frustrated about it. And you're like, okay, well, maybe what I need to do is hire a setter or hire a sales coach or hire somebody to really help me with sales even more. And then you're now spending most of your time, once again, on sales calls, giving as much context as you possibly can before you reveal your price. And it just kind of becomes a big mess. Now, what we focus on is something really different. I call this the need to have formula. And essentially, it's a process that really allows you to pre-sell your solution before you've even gotten to the point where you're actually actively selling what that solution is. And I actually just recorded a new secret podcast series that goes really deep into explaining this and breaking all down for you. That's at fabipaolini.com/formula. You can also find the link in the comments below or in the section below or the description of this video. So let's talk about what's going on with sales and how do you get people to basically really want to come in? Because again, this was me, by the way. This was me, a lot of me in the beginning in my own business. I spent the majority of our time on sales calls giving all of this context and really holding back information on our price points and how we worked and all these different things. And what happened is that we came across a lot of the same objections that very likely you're coming across as well. Like, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, it's not the right time, I have to think about it, all these different things. And it became really frustrating. And for me, I had this really big obsession with messaging, which is literally what we do. And I was really focused on, okay, what can we do to really, through our messaging, improve our conversions? How do we nurture our audience? What do we need to say and do to get people to really want what we have to sell? What I noticed is that a lot of my message used to be really focused on getting people on sales calls or getting people on a phone, and not necessarily in terms of like selling a big idea, which is what I call your angle of mastery. It's like this idea of I'm selling something that's more important, something that is really bigger than the framework or bigger than my specific process. I'm selling a bigger concept. And so when I focus and shifted my message from selling the call to now focus on selling this idea, our conversions shifted. But it wasn't only about that. It was about learning how to structure our content in a way that was really priming people to really want to buy what we had to sell. And I think that that's really the key. And listen, literally last week, I was on a call with somebody. If you've been around for a while, that what I do are these 15-minute brand message assessments where I will evaluate your message. I will see what your potential angle of mastery is and how you can communicate it more effectively so that you increase your conversions. By the way, you can book that at brandmessagesession.com. You can find the links below as well. Anyways, this call is not a sales call. It is a short call where I'm literally assessing or diagnosing your problem, evaluating your problem and looking at what's going on with your message and what are the things that you can do to really improve it so that you increase conversions, so that you can make more sales. Anyways, I was on a 15-minute assessment with somebody who was brand new to me. She had found me through ads 24 hours before. She had watched my 20-minute webinar on how to attract ready-to-invest clients and how to speak to buyers, all the things. And she booked that 15-minute call with me. And all of this happened within maybe an hour, right? She signed up, she watched the webinar, and she booked the call. Maybe actually literally around 30 minutes. The next day, I had my 15-minute call with her. I looked at everything that was going on. I gave her my diagnostic. I gave her my assessment in terms of what she needed to improve in her message, what was off. There was a lot of things that on paper sounded really great, but when I really went deeper, I could see how she was not really selling or pre-selling her offer. And so I gave her that analysis, and at the end of the call, she said, Fabi, what do I need to do? What's the next step? How do I work with you one-on-one right now? Next day, I booked her on a sales call with Eileen from my team. She hopped on that sales call and she became a 17K client, one-on-one client of mine. And so the reason why something like this can happen to us or in our business or in our world is because the way that I structure that 20-minute webinar, the way that I structure my emails, the way that I structure my ad copy, the way that I structure my landing page, the way that I structure the 15-minute call, all of that is done in a highly intentional way. This isn't something that I'm like just winging it. Even how I'm sharing my content in this episode right now is done in a very intentional way. And that is what I like to call the need to have formula. Essentially, need to have, because the idea is that you turn your offer from a nice to have to a need to have right now for the right people, obviously. And there's 3 core things that need to happen first before I kind of give you some of the pieces of the structure of the need to have formula. The first thing is that obviously you need to make sure that you're talking to buyers. Like, you can't just be talking to somebody that has the problem that you can solve. You have to be focused on making sure that the message is intentionally created to speak to the people who are looking to solve that problem. So we really want to focus on speaking to buyers. Going back to that example from the conversation that I had last week, she was somebody who recognized she had a problem. There was a certain level of problem awareness. She booked the call looking for a solution, and that's how it was also easier for us to make that sale, right? You know, if it's somebody that I have to still convince that they have a problem in the first place, then it's going to be a lot harder. So there has to be a certain level of problem awareness. It's really important that you're able to speak to actual buyers. I have a lot of videos on this topic. You can go to readytoinvestclients.com to watch my 20-minute training on this as well. But there's a lot more videos and episodes on that specific topic as well. So that's the first step. What I want you to understand is that premium buyers are not going to fall for simple, basic, generic solutions. If you're telling them you're going to help them live their best life or just lose weight or reach their potential or whatever, it's going to be a lot harder for you to actually make that sale. So for premium buyers to actually buy from you, you have to be able to shift their beliefs around what the problem is and what's going on and show them that you have a unique solution or perspective. I don't care what you do, my friend. I can guarantee that there is a unique way in which you're doing things right now. And you have to be able to clearly articulate what is that thing that you do differently. What is the thing that you're bringing to the table that nobody else in your field is doing? This isn't just about creating a framework. This isn't just about creating a one-liner. I help X, do blank so that they can Y. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is your true message. What is the thing that you are actually here to do? What is the thing that you stand for? What is the thing that you want to be known for? It is your true message. That is a really fundamental piece of this equation, because when you get that right, well, then you can infuse your content with this. Again, whether you were talking about a podcast episode or a webinar or an email or a landing page or whatever that is, to really showcase that your point of view, your way of looking at the problem and your way of kind of talking about the solution is actually going to be different. And so then the third step within that as well has to do with you actually connecting the dots between one thing and the other, between buyers and your solution. How do you really, or how are you able to really convey how you're here to shift your audience perspective, right? At the core, this is one of the fundamental things that you need to have in place in your marketing. Because if you're approaching the problem in the same way and the solution in the same way and you're communicating in the same way, well, what you do doesn't really sound different. And that's where the need to have formula comes into play and is really a big part of this. So for the need to have formula, there's a few different pieces in place that you need to have for this to work. The first thing, and I'm not going to reveal all of them in this training, but I will walk you through some of them. So the first thing has to do with understanding what your audience thinks the problem actually is and what actions they're taking to try to solve that problem right now. Your audience is doing things to try to solve the problem that they have, and they're implementing them and they're taking action on them and they're investing in them. And there's a lot of things that they're doing, as long as, again, we're thinking about buyers, right? There's things that these people are doing to try to solve that problem. However, the things that they're doing to try to solve the problem right now are not working. And the reason why they're not working is that they don't really understand what the true core cause or the core root cause of the problem actually is. And so you have to get a lot of clarity around, well, what are these mistakes that they're making? What are these things that my audience is doing? For example, in my case, my audience thinks that they have the problem being they're not attracting good leads. They think that what they have is a marketing issue, and what they need is more lead generation. They need to get in front of more people. They need to try different marketing strategies. They need to spend more money on ads, or they need to go on TikTok, or they need to try YouTube, or they need to do more strategies to get more eyeballs into their content. And the truth is that that's not really what the problem is. The problem has to do, from my perspective, in terms of their message. Because if the message is off, I don't care if you bring in 1,000 people, your conversions are still going to be extremely low. And the more people that you bring into your business, the more expensive it's going to actually be. It's not something that is as simple to scale if your message is really off. Your conversions are really low. It's going to cost you a lot of money to make sales, either because you're spending on ads, or you're spending it on creating content, or you're spending it on commissions. So it's really hard for you to scale. So first thing has to do with, what does your audience think that the problem is, and what are the things that they're doing to solve that problem that are obviously not working? The second thing has to do with that. What do you believe is the actual root cause of your audience's problem? This is something that I go really deep into in Breakthrough Brand, which is my group coaching program. And this is like one of the main things that we focus on in our own business with our clients and really help them craft, is how do you convey the root cause of your audience's problem without overcomplicating it, so that you're being really technical and you're going into things that they're like, you're here to tell me that the root cause of my problem is that I have unresolved trauma from when I was 1. Like, what? Right? We have to be able to explain the root cause of the problem from their level of awareness. And your process really, and the Need to Have formula, is about bridging the gap, is about closing that gap, or where they are right now and how they view the problem, to showing them how you view the problem instead. And so that's the second thing, right? First thing is, what is the problem from their perspective, and what are the actions that they're taking right now to try to solve the problem? The second thing is, what is the root cause of that problem? And then the third thing is, what is your unique solution? That is where the angle of mastery comes in, right? So those are the main things, right? How does your solution the antidote to the actual problem? And so the idea is that you're kind of threading a needle. You're connecting the dots between those three things to be able to close the gap and really be able to build a more of a need for your solution versus this would be a nice to have. So the idea here is that you make it really clear to them that the reason why they haven't solved this problem yet is because they haven't discovered this thing. And if they do discover this thing, where they follow this process that you have, then these are the solutions that they can experience instead. This is the result that they could get. But it's not enough to just say it like how I just said it. It has to be more deep and sophisticated and really done in a really refined way, because when we're talking about premium buyers, they're not dumb. If you're here to tell them like, oh, the problem is that you haven't, you haven't built a webinar, and you haven't built this webinar funnel. And once you build this webinar funnel, you find the secret weapon, then you're gonna get the solution. There's nothing brilliant about a webinar funnel, for example, right? I mean, it is if you do it correctly, but there's a million coaches out there teaching a webinar funnel, and it doesn't really make any difference. So you have to be able to sell what you do in a way that feels like, I never heard of that before. I never seen it like that. This is really interesting. I didn't think about it like that. This is something that I've never thought about in the way that you're sharing before. The idea here is for you to really create breakthroughs for them. And at the same time, you're contextualizing consistently. So what I mean with this is really showing them, when you do this thing correctly, these are the results that you can expect. When you do it incorrectly, this is the stuff that will happen. So for example, if you're not talking to buyers and you don't know how to speak to buyers, things that will go wrong is that you're going to speak to a lot of people who will tell you, I love what you do. This is exactly what I need, exactly what I'm looking for, but I can't buy right now. They're going to give you excuses. They're going to tell you that they're not ready for you yet. They're going to tell you that they're already invested into something else right now. They're going to tell you that as soon as they bring in a client, they're going to come to you. They're going to tell you these things. What happens instead when you learn how to speak to buyers is that you start attracting people. First of all, you start repelling people that are not there to buy, because you're kind of putting this like shield behind or boundary behind like you're not booking a call with me if you're not really interested in moving forward. There's a lot of simple ways that we focus on doing that within our business, like really setting that clear boundary. But also what happens is that you start attracting people that are like the woman that I talked about last week, this new client that I just signed. Like, okay, what's next? What do I need to do? What's the next step? How do I buy right now? You attract people who are really interested in the next step, and they're not here to waste time. Time is valuable for them. They will pay money to save themselves time. That is the big difference between a buyer and a thinker. I call it thinkers and doers, right? The people that are like, yes, I'll think about it, versus the action taker. That is a really, really big difference. So that's what you can experience. And what you just heard me do right now is I just contextualize for you the difference between you speaking to buyers and you not speaking to buyers. And these are the types of things that you want to infuse within your content through the Need to Have formula or through your own process to really be able to get people to basically sell themselves into your offer. You're really contextualizing. You're showing them kind of like your unique perspective and unique view of everything. And everything that you do in every piece of content that you create is focused on selling that big idea, that angle of mastery, that unique mechanism, that way of looking at the solution that nobody else is selling to them. When you do these things effectively, that is when you actually start attracting more buyers. And more than that, you get people that are selling themselves into your offer. No matter what your price point is, they're going to get to the sales call and feel like, I already know that this is what I want. How much is it? Let's go. And that's what the difference is. I hope that this was helpful. Make sure that you follow and subscribe everywhere on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You look me up on Facebook, TikTok, everywhere as Fabi Paolini. You can find the links below all this episode. And leave in the comments below what you're doing right now to try to generate more desire or more of a need or demand for what you do. I'm curious to hear more, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Bye.